marketing spend versus the digital. And so I want to ask you, how do you measure success, right? The ROI of merchandise, the ROI of promotional products is one of the biggest debates, I think, in this industry of like, well, you can't track it. And so I'm curious, how do you measure success with merch and promo, and swag and a purpose-driven organization, and really just in general? Welcome to Beyond the Swag. Merch is Media, the podcast where we go beyond logos, giveaways, and leftover budgets and talk about how branded merchandise actually functions as marketing, media, and brand experience. On this show, we sit down with founders, operators, and brand leaders to unpack the real decisions behind the brands you see. What works, what doesn't, and how the details people overlook often make the biggest impact. I'm your host, Kevin Patrick. This is Beyond the Swag. Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Swag podcast. I'm excited to have Logan Altman from Doing Good Works on this podcast. Logan's calling in from California, the complete opposite side of the country. Where he's just waking up and we're already halfway through our day. Logan, thanks for joining the show. Tell us a little bit about you and what Doing Good Works is about.
Kevin, first off, thank you so much for having me on the show. Second, thanks for the reminder that my day's just getting started. It is Friday when we're recording this, and I'm a bit bummed that it's not 5 o'clock quite yet.
Yeah.
You're inching a little closer,
Friday
but
the 13th too. I mean,
it's true. It's true.
To cancel on you or not? Like, something's going to go wrong during this podcast recording. Let's hope. Knock on wood.
Oh, a little black cat walk right through. I love it, man. Well, thank you again so much for having me. So as you mentioned, my name is Logan. Have the honor of serving as the Chief Impact Officer of Doing Good Works. We are a social enterprise, strategic branding, sourcing, and promotional agency that's out to disrupt the foster care system, especially those that are aging out of care. So we call it swag with purpose, if you will.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Tell us a little bit about, dive in a little bit more about like the Doing Good Works mission. You guys are obviously on this mission. You guys are crushing it. It seems like you're growing crazy. You're making an impact, hopefully. I mean, that's your job. So tell us, dive in a little bit about, you when you submitted the application to be on the show, you talked about transforming lives and connecting communities for good.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like in action?
It's a great question because a lot of times most folks think about the swag industry as just that, swag, and it's stuff that ends up on a shirt, and then when you're done with it, you throw it away. We saw the industry as an opportunity to help engage businesses, small and large, with utilizing their branded merchandise purchases to help to create outcomes for those impacted by foster care. So our whole idea began about 11 years ago. Kevin, I started in this industry. I was practically born into it. Yeah. I'm just kidding. But as an individual that was coming out of college, I was fortunate enough to intern for my aunt's distributorship and really get some understanding about what this industry is and how to brand, and that was really fun. Ended up working for a couple of other agencies and scaled those, but wasn't feeling overly fulfilled. At the time, back in the early 2010s, 2011s, it was swag that you slapped the logo on, as we said before the call, and there wasn't a whole lot of fulfillment from my side of things. So I was actually looking to exit the industry. Was thinking maybe I'll work for a nonprofit, maybe a church or something, but I wanted to do something that was benefiting others versus myself, even though I knew the industry very well. Yeah. So I was at that pivotal point in my life where I thought, let's exit that. It was at that time I was introduced to my co-founders who, ironically enough, were looking to use this industry, this $28 billion industry called swag, to disrupt the foster care system. Yeah. When I was introduced to them, they had shared their vision about, one, utilizing it, but just the outcomes for those that were aging out of foster care. I myself had no experience other than some service projects with a couple of children's homes, and so I had a bit of an understanding, but not to the extent of what I was about to hear, and that was that 50% will end up homeless, incarcerated within the first year of aging out of the system, which is 18 for most of the United States, or 21 here in California. Things like early teen pregnancies. At the end of the day, those outcomes haven't changed over the last 30, 40 years. And my co-founders
had grown more than
they have,
than actually,
which is crazy.
Down. It's crazy, absolutely.
And my co-founders are business leaders themselves. They come from packaging and supply chain, executive search on the other side. And so when they had heard of the statistics on their own, they looked at it as saying, if that was the output for our businesses, if we looked at that level of success, we would all be out of business, right? Like there's no way that we could have that level of failure and still be able to be operating. So the fact that these are humans and not widgets, or not something on a production line, makes it all the worse that it's been 30, 40 years really since those metrics have been captured. So they themselves wanted to find an industry that everybody could participate in, something that could be a distributorship model, almost product agnostic, but help to fund and get a way that everybody could participate in, to help then create bettering outcomes for those in foster care. They sat at a table at a corner bakery here in Southern California and did a quick Google search. This was before AI, before ChatGPT, and looked for industries that they could use to be a self-funded model. And the promotional products industry was number one. And they said, we don't know anything about logoed products. We need to find somebody who does. Yeah. And that's when I was introduced to those two gentlemen as they were beginning the stages. And when they had shared their vision of using it, I said, okay, that's something I could get behind. As I was looking to leave, I could see then how somebody's pen purchase, somebody's polo purchase could actually then make an impact for a life. I was in. And so they were beginning the iterations. I was thankfully not married at the time, was a little bit more fluid with being able to take that risk. Yeah. But we had thought about then utilizing this model of swag to fund a staffing agency for young people aging out of foster care. That economic driver of having a job was what we thought was going to solve all the problems. So we ended up partnering with a couple of the nonprofits in our local community here in Orange County that were working with transition age youth to connect them to jobs. We were growing, we were scaling the branded merch side, which gave us flexibility on us being self-funded. But as we were placing young people in jobs with great, like Disneyland and Sodexo and Starbucks, I mean, these were jobs, Kevin, that were meant to be not just simply a first time, but a building block to a career. And when we noticed that those same kiddos were coming back every 8 to 12 weeks saying, I need a new job. And we would say, what do you mean? We got you at the back lot of Disneyland for this incredible career. We would hear things like, well, I was 3 minutes late and I was too afraid to talk to my employer, so I just didn't show up. Or my tire popped on my bike on the way, and I was too afraid to let my boss know, so I just want a fresh start. And Kevin, when I tell you that was not an anomaly, that we noticed that same cycle for a majority of the young people that we were employing, that there was a broken system not being addressed. And when we learned that it was how do you deal with the fight, flight, or freeze mentality when your entire life has been built on higher levels of cortisol, that our model of funding the mission was not going to be sustainable. And thus, why these outcomes over the last 30, 40 years haven't changed. Because we were trying to just address a top line, get them a job, get them into school, and they're going to take care of themselves mentality, when that is the furthest thing from the truth. So we ended up scrapping that, and over the last 5-6 years, really developing what is now our Foster Greatness Initiative through the sale of branded merch to be able to build that up, to say, let's build a community that young people that have aged out of the system never age out of for free, to be in community with other lived experience individuals and also get access to critical resources. So all of that being said, we found swag as the funding mechanism to also then tell businesses and nonprofits that your purchases can create human transformation. So that was really the idea behind Doing Good Works and utilizing this industry.
Awesome. No, I love it. Where exactly is merch fitting into this ecosystem? Like how is it benefiting not only you guys, obviously, and the foster, people, but like where is it really fitting into making this impact that you guys are making?
That's an incredible question, Kevin, because for me, I had a narrow mind thinking, I'd spent almost 6 years in this industry, and I thought that it was things that had a very short life cycle and ended up in a landfill. What I'm so encouraged about is not only how we've been able to utilize the swag and branded merch world to fund this outcome, but ultimately use it as a talking point to create employee engagement, to create a better tomorrow. I've been so encouraged by where the industry is going. I've been fortunate to help consult for the Promo for the Planet side of ASI for a while. And now where our world is headed is utilizing merch and the entire supply chain of the creation of it for the betterment of people and planet. So the ecosystem has changed over the last 10 years from being a throwaway model to how do we ensure that the employees that are receiving these items or the staff that are representing these items are feeling connected to a better tomorrow? And that storytelling component has been great for us and our mission, because we've said, not only is swag going to help fund bettering outcomes, and your purchases are automatically going to do that, whether you care or not about the foster community, we will do the heavy lifting, but the types of products and services that we're able to offer are creating true human transformation. So that recycled material that's used in that tote bag, that's great. But then if we're doing a pack out project and creating kits here at our local facility in Irvine, we're actually hiring individuals from the local community in an open hire model. So those that have been justice impacted, those in recovery, those who've experienced homelessness. So we're creating a unique overall ecosystem. So the entire purchase of swag is meant to be to create a better tomorrow, which has been so well received from businesses both local and global in how we're thinking about swag for good and not having to spend more to do good.
Yeah.
That's the other big thing, Kevin, is most people think that in order to work with a social enterprise like Doing Good Works, a group that's using swag to create outcomes, we're going to have to pay more. And versus going to somebody else, going to another agency that's out there that's not. We would probably be remiss in thinking that they're going to be more. Well, that's not true. And I'm grateful that delta's come down, but at the same time, I'm also grateful that we're able to educate and show that you don't have to spend more to do good.
Yeah. And guys, I want, for anyone that's listening, I did not tell him to say any of this, but you just explain why we started this podcast. And I didn't tell you. I mean, be honest.
It's true.
I tell you
it's
what
true.
to say.
I'm being honest.
We started this podcast because you hit it on the head. You go back and you look back at this industry, the promotional products industry, and a lot of it has been, catalog pushing and order taking.
Yep.
And throwing logos on products, and you don't have to spend more. Can that be the case in some scenarios? Sure, but you have to think more. You have to think.
You nailed it.
And that's why we named this podcast Beyond the Swag, because the actual product is at the end of this thought process.
That's right.
And that is okay, we have all of this thought behind what we're trying to do. Now we need to create something that fits what we're doing. Or source something that is created to what we're doing, and it happens every day. I mean, I'm sure you see it, I see it. People. Yeah. I just had a phone call earlier this week, and somebody called me, brand new prospective client for us, and they were like, "Hey, we have a trade show coming up, and we want to order some stress balls." And I personally, I hate stress balls. I don't know why they.
That was why I wanted to exit the industry with stress balls. I'll call it what it is.
I told her, I was like, obviously, look, yeah, we can get them for you. I said, but I have to ask, why stress balls? Mm-hmm. And I can't sugarcoat it, and I can't make this up. The response that I got back was, I don't know. I just see a bunch of stress balls at trade shows. And thank God I was not on a video call and I was just on the phone. Because I rolled my but that's what we hear. That is what people and it's one, you're not going to stand out. Two, that stress ball is not going to make an impact. And it's crazy that, and how this industry has become that. And
it has.
Without the and you guys obviously have backing and stories behind what you're doing, but even just like someone like me that doesn't have that social, and it's just like,
Yep.
hey, like you need to put this thought process behind it. I'm curious to
Yes.
know when, you had mentioned before to me, merchandise as a key marketing tool.
Yes.
I'm curious when in your career, whether it was before you joined Doing Good Works or not, when you realized that merchandise can become more or is more than just promotional.
For me, I had such a jaded mindset prior to when we began Doing Good Works, because I did. It was the stress balls. It was the same cheap pens. It was the same thing that it was like, let's just slap a logo on it. Understanding how it can tell a story. We think of ourselves, and I'll tell you right now, Kevin, we are the most unique group in the industry. We do not have any traditional sales reps. We built an 8-figure promotional products business on folks right out of college and from the foster care system. 60% of our direct hires. What we learned was that we don't need to be salespeople. We need to be storytellers. We need to not only be a storyteller, we need to understand what exactly is the problem that this client is facing, and how can the promotional merchandise help to be a vessel to get you from A to Z in solving that problem. So if it's employee engagement, how do we use that and think about products and services that are going to best help that employee feel engaged and excited to be representative? If it's a trade show, how do we ensure that the end users are getting the best understanding of what you do? That is not necessarily a stress ball. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is not send you to a website and say type in tote bags and 50,000 come up, throw a dart and hope that it's a good one.
Yeah.
As we jokingly say, we're a 4 quarters, not a 100 pennies swag group. We can work with a million suppliers in our industry who often knock on our door and say, hey, we saw you guys, ASI salespeople of the year, whatever it was, we would love to work with you. We say, thank you. That's an honor. But at the same time, what we're trying to create is not this breadth that's far and wide of as much as we can showcase. It's let's get on the phone with our customers and see what are your pain points. Yeah. We're dealing with global economies and global situations since the pandemic that are unprecedented, and I will tell you, nobody knows what tomorrow holds. The swag world has continued to be super volatile, but what we've been able to do is help to showcase that no matter what's going on in your specific world as our client, we want you to know that we are here as your marketing wing to come alongside and help you through and to continue to expand and grow your mission. So as we just talked about, a swag piece is meant to be almost an extension of what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah. And a lot of distributorships, a lot of sales reps miss that mark. And I can't tell you how many sales reps from other suppliers that'll come in and say, I want to bring you all of our stuff. We'll play, say, no, we're not interested. Say, wait, what do you mean? Kindly, we're not. We are looking for more about how can we strategically utilize our collective efforts to help improve the experiences for our customers. That does not mean you sending me 50 catalogs in the mail to send out to people. That does not mean you bringing a giant trunk full of stuff for us to touch and feel. We could look it up ourselves. Yeah. So, Kevin, it is different for us because our vision as a very young organization has always been, let's understand the client needs and use the swag as the vessel versus let me just come to a product demonstration. Yeah. We don't do that. And it's allowed us to scale, to 8 figures, which has been a blessing with folks that are going up against industry reps that are, 40, 50 years in the industry, where I've got our top sales gal who was 23 at the time, came out of college, had no other background other than doing some internships at an event space, and she did $1 million in sales her first year. Not because she knew a thing about a setup charge or anything, but she knew what was trendy. Yeah. She knew that she could utilize resources within our internal teams from our strategic sourcing partners to bring to light opportunities and then let the rest of our team help to bridge that gap. So it really, at the end of the day, it's thinking about how to use it as a vessel for a story versus how to be able to just sell a random tchotchke piece because it was under a bucket.
It's that brand recognition and that emotional, versus the emotional connection. Like how can we create these things that people want to keep? I mean, a stress ball. I did another recording a couple weeks ago with a friend of mine, and she was like, you come into a new company and they give you a stress ball in your onboarding kit. Like,
Yep.
it's like, why am I getting a
Yep.
stress ball? Am I going to be stressed at this job? And I didn't even think about this, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's a great point. Like, why are you giving me a stress ball? And then, the employee recognition, making people feel valued
Yeah.
at your company. She's like, for my 5-year anniversary at an old job of hers, they gave her a wooden block that was the number 5.
It's. I
And
wish
like,
that
okay,
was
great.
like
That might be
not
one
normal.
thing of a few that are part
Yep.
of that. Congratulations, you've been here for 5 years. But no, that
Yeah.
was the thing. A wooden block.
Yep.
And it goes to, so many different things, but, the loyalty of creating brands. I mean, the emotional feeling that I'm sure you guys get, because I know I get it too, being in this industry of creating things. We created a golf polo for a nonprofit organization in New York, and I was down in Florida visiting some family, and we went out to wasn't Disney, but it was another like big park in the area. I forget what it was called.
Yep.
And we went into one of the restaurants there, and I'm looking and I'm staring at this polo, and I'm glad he didn't like see me. But I'm staring at this polo, and I'm like, I think that's the polo we made for the golf outing in New York.
Mm.
And here we are, thousands of miles away, and I'm like, I
That's right.
just don't know because I'm in Florida, and this is in New York, like,
Yep.
and we're in Pennsylvania, like there's a lot of things going on here. And finally, look, we got done, and I walked past it, and it was. And like,
Isn't that something?
the feeling that I got there of like, hey, this meant something. I
Yes.
see pictures of some polos that we've done and other products too.
Yep.
Like years down the road, still being worn.
That's
And
it.
knowing that every time somebody wears your product, it's cliche, right? But they're a walking billboard. But it's
That's
so
it.
true, right? Like if you spent $100 one time and somebody wore that hoodie, 60 times a year over
That's
the
right.
course of
Think
2
about the
years,
impressions.
it's a ton of impressions. How many people are seeing
Yep.
that? They post a picture on it, and it's going on social media. And how many people are following them on social media? And you get in the right hands. I mean, my old golf brand, we had Baker Mayfield wear a quarter zip that we made in a post-game press conference.
Yep.
We just, and my phone blowing up. And we just had a hoodie that we made for another client. A Philadelphia Eagles player was wearing in his post-game press conference. Like, seeing that impact is not just rewarding for us because we made the product, but it's rewarding to see
Yep.
for our clients
Yes.
because it's like, hey, you see what we're talking about. This Eagles player doesn't own one of their cars. He loves the cars. He just doesn't. He didn't. He's not far enough along in his career to want to splurge
Yeah.
on that money. But he loves the brand, and
Yes.
he got the hoodie somehow, and he wore it in a post-game press conference. Now they're blowing up because this is on every
Yep.
news station because he just had a career day. And it's like that is the impact that merchandise can carry, across the board.
Yep.
And it leads into my next point and topic I want to talk about is merch as a community builder. And strengthening a sense of belonging within a community or movement. And I'm interested in your take
Yes.
on how, merchandise can strengthen that sense of community or movement or culture from your guys' standpoint.
Yeah, that's a big thing because what we also want to do is create a sense of camaraderie behind the product. I feel like I'm not part of necessarily an elite club, but maybe I was part of an organization or an achievement that I now get to carry with the rest of my life. And that's almost like, if you think about like winning a championship, if we did something momentous as an organization, that I got something that not only commemorates that's practical and I can use, but it's something that I'll get to carry for the rest of my life, more so than a desk plaque, right? Nothing wrong with that. But kind of similar to yours, there's that feeling of when you do nail it and you hit it on the head and you are able to create that sense of camaraderie and excitement because you thought outside the box, there is something that's so special behind it because you know that you've achieved the vision of that organization. Similar to your story, we have the blessing of partnering with some of the largest movie and entertainment organizations in the world. And one of them had asked, hey, we're creating a custom piece for a movie release, and we really want it to be a custom wearable that actually is shown in the movie.
Yeah.
We want to create that from scratch, and we want to do so with this budget. I mean, yeah, we've got a 6-month runway, but is there anything we can do? And we're like, you betcha we can.
Yeah.
And so not only do we create a piece that was from the movie that the characters wore, we also created the custom memento inside that was a custom patch that said, this is one of 500, and you were a momentous part of this movie. Yeah. And what was so special about that, similar to yours, is that took place, that whole thing, 2,500 miles away. I ran into somebody that was a part of that at Disneyland, and I had, thankfully, I was able to keep one myself. They had made one for me. But then when I saw that person amidst the crowd wearing that, I stopped them and I said, I know you worked for that and that specific movie. And they said, yeah, I did. This is one of the coolest things I ever received. And they loved the idea that it was not only something that commemorated the movie, it was actually out of it, but it was designed for them and their achievement for what that looked like. And to see it, I joke, but see it in the wild, that somebody 4 years later was wearing that piece that I ran into, again, doing this so far away, was special because you knew that it was having the impact that it was designed for. And that type of thought process is something that we get to do every single day, whether it's a movie release or whether it's, we have a 30th anniversary or we're a massive healthcare organization that just came out of the pandemic. How the heck do we ensure that all of our incredible healthcare workers, our 15,000 staff across all of California, feel that they are loved and cared for after putting their lives on the line into the pandemic? And no, that should not be a stress ball. No, that should not be a pen. Yeah. And when I tell you that I've heard organizations do that, and you think and then it blows up on TikTok, and you hear like, oh my gosh, this group gave their employees this for Employee Appreciation Day, and it was almost a slap in the face because they missed. You get such big. So at the end of the day, thinking about how we can connect the communities and connect those that are representative of that organization with a piece, a branded merchandise piece that checks all the boxes and then some, because you want that feeling of support, camaraderie, and excitement to continue to wear that. We often tell a lot of big brands, instead of just slapping, and especially nonprofits, instead of slapping your logo on the front of the shirt, put a special message. For us, we created the Be Kind movement. One of our pillars is Be Kind. The others are Love More, Do Good. Yeah. And so many organizations resonate with that. So for, a couple of nonprofits that have stations all over the United States, one of the largest groups, creating a Be Kind to Yourself shirt and then having their logo on the back. But so when you're wearing that, it feels like, oh, this is a piece that I could maybe, use that I could find at a retail store. It's got fun script, whatever it is. It's a reminder to be kind to others. When others see it, it's a reminder for them. But then it also is keeping in line with something that means a lot to that organization. And the last one that I'll lead to is the most recent one is very large national nonprofit that helps to build homes. They're doing competitions with all of the different local areas, not to see who can one-up each other, but to continue to create camaraderie and building homes in the underserved communities. We created a shirt that had the same design, but all different field colors, so that way they could create some buzz on social media that says our team in California versus our team in Seattle are all wearing a different shirt, but still have the same motto on it. And it was build up our community. Yeah. And so what was going on social media viral, because it still created that sense of belonging amidst a national nonprofit versus we're just going to get a bunch of random t-shirts that have a logo on it and wear it. There's no tangibility to that. So it is a case by case basis. That's why we don't have a site that says, go look it up and it's a, in our industry, a normal industry site. Let's get on the phone and talk this through.
Absolutely. This industry, I'm not knocking any of the products, your Gildan t-shirts and all those kinds of stuff.
Of course. They have a place.
There are purposes for those products, and not everything has to be made, cut, and sew, even though we love doing it because
Correct.
We can create so much cooler stuff. And you hit on it a little bit, these guys aren't putting their logo huge across the chest.
Correct.
And because that's not screaming branded merchandise, that's not screaming that you care about them. That's screaming that, hey, we need visibility, and we're throwing our label on this product. Nobody wants to
Yep.
wear that. You look at some of the biggest brands in the world. I talk about it all the time. Nike, Under Armour. Where's their logo? Subtle
Yep.
left chest movement for multiple purposes. Now people can reuse it and put their logo
Yep.
on it. And sure, they have some big designs, but the vast majority of them are subtle because nobody wants to
Correct.
wear the billboard, but
Yep.
you will if you do it in a way that people actually want to wear that product. We've done cool things with a nonprofit golf polo putting a QR code in the size tag, and
Yep.
during the event, I forget what they had on there, but now they can control everything. And there was a message around that QR code, and again, this is part of the size tag inside the shirt. It's always going to be there. But there was a message saying like, "Hey, check back," and they had people's stories, GoFundMe's. Like they control that off of one simple thing that we printed one time. Now
That's
it's
right.
that story that like people were going back and scanning golf polo size labels to see what the next big thing that these guys were doing, what next big event, what family can we help.
That's exactly it.
It was cool. Like it's cool to see. I mean, I scan it here and there to see, what it is. I mean, I kind of put on some weight. I don't fit in the polo no more, so I got to lose some pounds to get back to that. But I want to dive not a little bit further, but I want to go on one more touch point with this. Is why do you think these community-driven, these cause-driven pieces, whether they're apparel or not, are so much more impactful, and why corporate companies get it wrong? Like, why people are so on board of these cause-driven pieces, but then ignore the corporate swag.
Yep. It's a delta that we're having to try and bridge, because you're also dealing with so many organizations that have senior leadership that, not to knock on them, but they're not necessarily as in touch with what the groups that they're hiring are needing. The millennial, the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas, that generation that I just mentioned are demanding that the products and services that the company is representing cares and has people and planet at the forefront. Also, focusing on what they represent as a community or as a business as a whole. A lot of the times, those senior leaders are very driven, of course, by profit. Bottom line, makes sense, right? You have to run a good business, but they're also not seeing the bigger picture that you can almost have your cake and eat it too. And so what it's seeing is the generations that are stepping into the purchasing roles, the account coordinators, the marketing leaders, the communication leaders that are saying, hey, we've got to shift the culture a little bit here and make sure that what we are representing as a brand is catering for a better tomorrow. And so that's been a big thing. The other thing is the education piece. You just touched on something that's really important, is there's the way to elevate the experience that a lot of those businesses don't know about. That's why we say we're a trusted advisor organization, where we focus on how can we advise for our clients in the best way possible with their vision at the end of it, not our vision, right? Yeah. That's the big thing that we think about, is how can we think about products instead of just a big old logo on something, something subtle, whether it's a patch, whether it's a woven label, whether it's something that is a QR code that then goes to a video. That's something that we do in all of our kitting that we do here in Southern California for massive brands, is we'll print either an insert card or on the custom box itself a QR code that'll link you to the impact that's being made. And we can adjust that to say, hey, so-and-so, thank you so much for choosing Doing Good Works to host your pack out. I'm so-and-so from the foster population, and you just helped to create massive change amongst the community here that's working on your job. And what does that do? It creates a tangible feeling that I'm the recipient of that box, if I'm a new hire, whatever it might be. Yeah. And I feel like, wow, my company thought of me and who they're using to create this experience. And so a lot of the times brands are and older groups are in this mindset of, I have to stay in the box, right? I have to think about a logoed product, big old 11-inch imprint on the chest, and that's all that I can do. I don't think that I could spend, to get a custom woven label. Right? That is not true at all. Let's help you look at that. Let's take a look at your budget, know that we can maximize that, but let's get creative.
Yeah.
Let's use this to build on a storytelling piece that still keeps your brand in mind, but also helps to be an employee engagement and a community engagement piece, because that's what's going to help continue to elevate your brand. People get excited about that.
Yeah.
And it's, for us, is, it's pennies on the dollar to create a custom hang tag that you can slot into the back of a neck, or create a custom neck label, or do something that looks like a woven label, that gives you the opportunity to elevate the experience and feel like you are a retail brand.
Yeah.
That's what people want. That's what these generations are demanding. Is it's not a walking billboard. It's, I want to wear something that's lifestyle. Not only does it feel good, but it looks good. And if I'm a brand and I can subtly put a tone on tone, or maybe like a PVC patch on a polo shirt and do a custom liner, that's something that we're doing right now. We made a custom hoodie that, on the outside you wouldn't tell, but on the inside it's fully custom wrapped with the branding. So subtle elements that then still feel like you're getting the messaging across is where we're having to educate and say, you can do that. We'll help you navigate it.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, and we're running into the same issue, not issue, but, topic is that higher level, right? I'm going to call it older, because I'm 29 years old. That older generation, that's what they're used to. They're used to, hey, let me get that Gildan t-shirt for our trade show coming up, and we're going to throw our logo on it. But like you just said, like, people don't want to wear the walking billboard. And I've heard it, a few times, and people have messaged me on LinkedIn, like, you talk about the walking billboard all the time. I said, yes, but you're not creating the billboard. You're creating a product that they want to wear.
Yep.
That with them wearing it, now they're the walking billboard.
Yep.
I mean, and you got your logo here on the left sleeve. People still see that. It doesn't have to be large across the chest, and it's different, for a contractor or something that's working in the field, and people want their, they want their logo large because people driving by, they want to see them, and there's those multiple touch points between the truck, the lawn sign, and all that stuff to say, hey, these are the guys that just did that project. That's completely different.
Absolutely.
How do you make sure merch feels authentic and not like you're trying to monetize goodwill?
Well, that's a great thing, because in this industry, we have greenwashing, and I'm gonna touch on the sustainability aspect a little bit on that, because
which is becoming huge for listeners that don't know. Sustainability is becoming one of the most driven topics in this industry. But go ahead.
You're right. Yep. Yeah. No, you're right, Kevin. And what we're seeing with that is this desire for suppliers and international groups to get on board with the sustainability trend, but they're not truly taking the steps to guarantee that the products that they're creating are actually sustainable. So while you might have a recycled icon on an item, it may only have 3% material recycled, and the rest of that stuff is made up of very toxic materials that will not biodegrade over time, but it says recycled on it. So what we're also seeing is having to help navigate the greenwashing or the saturation, if you will, of recycled products in the market to vet the ones that we want to represent, to make sure that at the end of the day, we can showcase the SDS reports. We can showcase the clean supply chain from not only how was that textile sourced, but how was it sewn together? How was it shipped? What packaging did it come in? So that way we could have confidence for our customers in saying, this is a truly green product, and we have the receipts to back it up.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
because of the trend, so many of the groups are getting on that, but they're not able to furnish that. So for us, instead of saying, hey, here's our whole, giant, 15,000 line item catalog of all the things that are quote unquote recycled or sustainable, we're going to help partner you with the ones that we know have a story behind it. So whether that's we're supporting the cotton farmers in India, or we know that this is a certified recycled ocean plastic and we can back it up with the materials, we have to be ensuring that that's done. So that way, when the end user is representing that in the field, they feel comfortable with that too. Because I will tell you, the folks that are wearing it and the millennials and the Gen Zs that are going to be asking, is this truly a sustainable piece? They're the ones that care about it. Yeah. And we have to make sure that what we're representing actually has the receipts to prove that this is indeed a sustainable piece. Because if it's not, and we've seen that quite a bit, that groups get knocked on it saying, I helped consult this one organization, that supplement company, and they wanted to create 100% sustainable packaging. And they put out this incredible campaign. I mean, they went to town with social media, everything that was made from sugar cane. The packaging was 100% biodegradable, and the polymers were made from the sugar cane. And it was this most world-renowned sustainable piece. And they put it out there, and they failed to realize, and we didn't create it, but they failed to realize that the actual label was made with a laminate that will never biodegrade. And they put out this ad, paid tens of thousands of dollars to say, we're the only group with a 100% biodegradable container for our supplement. And that was not true.
Yeah.
And the group got into some flack on that because the false claim, but they didn't know, they were ignorant. But it's a paper label.
Yeah.
But it has a laminate on it, and that laminate will never biodegrade. So where does that leave us as the trusted advisors of the industry? Is we have a duty to represent and vet our partners. Make sure that who we're partnering with, if we're making a textile from scratch, and we have a customer that says, I want that recycled dry fit material to actually be recycled in my performance polo, we better be able to make sure when we're sourcing that polyester overseas that we can make sure the factory has the receipts, showcase the blend, and ensure that we can provide that at any given point to our customers. So when they then market it at my golf tournament, it says, hey, we're providing you these recycled polos made from ocean plastic, they have the confidence in that.
Yeah.
Versus I just hope it's true.
Yeah, and
so,
they can stand behind it, and that's a big
It's
thing
true.
that I can tell, just from this conversation, that you guys stand out, and that's,
Yep.
we do the same thing, and you need to find that trusted partner.
Yeah.
That
You have to.
that you can trust with the stuff and is going to go through those processes, because I've seen horror stories. I mean, this industry,
Yes.
and I'm sure you'll know exactly, and you'll have them too, of
Oh, yeah.
it's like made in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the same thing for sustainability. Is it actually made in the USA, or is it
Yep.
manufactured in the USA? Those can be two different things. Is it designed in the USA? Did they import
Is
everything?
it printed in the USA?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is it branded, decorated? All those things go into play, and they're not the same. People think they are.
No.
But
No.
we love, I love, and I scratch my head about it all the time. People that are buying shirts and tearing the tags out to put their brand in it.
Yes.
And I was vocal on it a little bit, and I realized I had to kind of stop.
Okay.
Some like Instagram, things where I'm seeing this, and I'm commenting like, you're creating an illegal product.
Mm-hmm.
And I started getting into an argument with one guy. I'm like, all right, I gotta stop this.
Yep.
I can't
This
do
is your hill to die on. Yep.
People look at it all the time. And they're like, well, that's the whole point of a tearaway tag. And I'm like, no, that's not the whole point of a tearaway tag.
Yeah.
But people are taking stuff, that is, and I've seen it, and I'm sure you have, it's
Oh, yeah.
Gildan t-shirt or whatever t-shirt, and it's made in China, and next thing you know, they tear away the tag, and they say that it's made in the United States.
Yep. And you can
That's
get
what their
into so much
client
flack
wants.
from that.
And
Yeah.
It's false. And don't get me wrong, if the FTC ever finds out, you're getting fined out the wazoo. But,
Yeah.
But there are people out there that do it, and honestly, there are people out there that do it more and more on a daily basis than the ones that
Yep.
do it right.
And I will tell you too, Kevin, I 100% have turned away so much business because people have wanted to do very similar types of things. For example, they wanted to buy, a Giorgio Armani t-shirt for their team and screen print it and then rip out the label. And at the end of the day, Giorgio Armani says clear as day, you cannot embellish our products. I said, we are not going to take that order. I realize you want to do this for your entire team. This would be an incredible order.
Yeah.
We don't feel comfortable representing that and potentially getting you guys in trouble for doing that. You can go to another
Because then you're
group
going to
if
come
they're
back on
okay
us
with that.
too. Yeah.
It 100%. And same thing, like I found this really nice retail piece that I want to have embroidered. Okay, great. We need to do our due diligence because we also have to be cognizant of that brand. A lot of those high-end retail brands are very strict on, co-branding and embellishment. They do not want you to put your logo on something that they've designed to be sold in a Nordstrom or an REI or, a Saks Fifth Avenue. That is meant for them to do until you get permission for that. And I've had to turn that away. It's the same thing where they said, hey, we want to remove our neck label and put this specific verbiage on that. If I know it's not true, I will gladly turn away the order and say, this is why we're not going to do that. If you feel like that's not a right answer for you, you are more than welcome to go to another organization. Sure. We've been blessed where not only had to fire customers because they haven't aligned with our values,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but they've asked us to do some shady things. Yeah. And even if we weren't a mission-driven company, there is ethics to the industry, and we don't want to represent and perpetuate that. Let somebody else make that decision. If they don't get in trouble, great. That's their thing. We have to do right by the brand and their brand as well. Yeah. And knowing that there's a lot of nuances to that, it's incredibly touchy. Yeah. And I wish
people want to take off the stuff, and there's requirements that have to still be on there, and they're like, well, we don't want all those requirements because it's not going to be the design one. I said, well, it's going to have to go somewhere.
Correct.
If you don't want it screen printed or printed on the side, on the neck tag, or on the inside neck, then we got to put it somewhere, and that's gonna that could if we're gonna create a woven label, well, now there's additional costs to that.
Yep.
But I'm so glad you brought up some of the retail brands, because I don't want to say I've gotten into fights, but I've gotten into fights with clients about this, where Patagonia is one of the big ones. Where
we love them. Yeah.
Some of these big guys, like, people come to me and they're like, hey, we want this Patagonia T-shirt. I said, okay, well, we need to figure out what you're going to put on it. And they're, well, what's the pricing? I said, no, hold on. Before we get any further, we need to figure out what you're going to put on it. I said, because I'm going to tell you right now, we need to go get permission from Patagonia to put your logo, and these are the questions. How many are you going to make? Who are you? Who's doing the embellishment? What logo is going on it? What is the purpose behind it? Mm-hmm. And you might not get approved. Well, we want them.
Yes.
So that's great. You might not get approved. I'll tell you right now, we won't be able to buy it. So we can go through pricing and all this other stuff as if we're going to get this, but understand you might not get approved. And clients look at us and they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, it's, some of the retail brands make me laugh when it's like, hey, if you spend more than $5,000, they go through this process. I'm like, so you don't care if I spend less than $5,000, it's still the same, like, thing. So some of those retail brands, I'm not gonna call them out. Like, they make me laugh. I'm like, so you don't care if I buy one piece and throw my logo on it. But again, it's that impact, and they want their brand to be represented in the proper way.
True. Yep.
I want to dive into, because this is one of the big questions that we always hear, and I've had CMOs debate this with me. Because people look at merchandise in a different way than they look at digital stuff, right? They look at the physical, marketing spend versus the digital. And so I want to ask you, how do you measure success, right? The ROI of merchandise, the ROI of promotional products is one of the biggest debates, I think, in this industry of like, well, you can't track it.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, how do you measure success with merch and promo, and swag and a purpose-driven organization, and really just in general?
Yeah. And it's a great question, because at the end of the day, it's a B2B play. It's not a B2C where exactly how that effect is on that consumer long term because of their repurchasability. For us, it looks like certainly client loyalty, right? That's a big thing. And if we know that we've knocked it out of the park, there's a really strong chance they're not going to go anywhere. Because here's the other problem too, Kevin. There's I don't even know the exact number, tens of thousands of distributors all across the United States. You throw a rock and there's probably about 500 in Pennsylvania. Same thing here in Southern California. The opportunity for you to just go anywhere at any given time is right at your fingertips. And promo has less loyalty than print. If you've got a really good print partner for your direct mail, your offset printing, you're likely locked in on that. Promo, there's very little loyalty. So what we've had to do in terms of our client retention is ensure that the overall experience is at a sky high. So that way, when we do our net promoter scores or when we send out our emails to say, hey, what's next? We're not met with, we'll figure it out down the line. It's, hey, we're looking to do maybe a quarterly business review and take a look and see, what you guys can help us out with for the upcoming year and start to map that out. So we're looking at not only from that one-off opportunity, but then it looks like what's the entire scope of how we can support that organization. So we typically don't like to be a transaction-based group. Like, we don't do bids. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, we've got asked by some of the largest brands, we'd love for you to come bid with these 5 other groups. Nope, we're not interested. Wait, we love what you guys do, your mission, everything. we are not in the business of bidding. We're in the business of partnerships and how we can help brands succeed. And I've actually had a lot of groups say, well, forget them, the other groups. We love your alignment. If you guys can match all that pricing and figure that all out for us, but help us create a better experience, and we'll go with you. So at the end of the day, the ROI looks like, how can we keep and delight our clients to where they're coming back for various types of things, right? And then how are the employees feeling? Is there success in that? That's why oftentimes we'll put a little QR code that talks about, how do you feel about this product? How did you like this initiative? And it came from the organization. So that way the employee or the individual can give some feedback and say, this was really well curated, or I really wish the next time I could receive this, so they can pivot. That type of feedback helps to give the brand or the organization a bit of some insight into thinking about things down the line. So because it isn't like, I've got a repeat customer that's buying my protein, on monthly repeat cycle. You have to make sure that your client is not only growing, but giving you the opportunity to slot in as their marketing wing and continue to think about the overall experience for the year. That's how we look at our customers, is what is the cyclical cycle of somebody? They've got employee appreciation. They have their hiring, typical bumps that come at this time. They know that this is normally when they have their own initiatives that take place, holidays. We typically will help them forecast for the year, especially with doing a lot of the custom side of things. Yeah. So they then know each year, all right, if we know that we've got employee appreciation in March and we need to do 5,000 custom things, we got to start planning in November. And so we're going to get that on the calendar. So that's how we take a look at ROI. Is sure, our growth has been pretty strong. We've had a pretty successful run of it, hitting the Inc. 5000 list a few times, hitting the Humanitarians of the Year within the industry, and the growth has been exciting. But it's also looked at, how do we ensure that the groups that we're working with don't see us as a transactional partner? We don't want to be a one and done. We don't want to feel like we're bidding. It's, we get you, and that's what matters. Who are you trying to support? And we're just here to help you navigate that, and the swag is a piece of it. So that's kind of how.
Yeah, and we talk about it all the time here. It's like, hey, we're not. I don't care about transactions. Obviously, we do.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we care about the relationships, and
that's
because
it.
Relationships will create transactions. And if we're continuing to keep, like, I see, I'm in, promotional products Facebook page, and I see people constantly talking about, oh, this client and this person's undercutting me, and this person's.
Yeah.
And I just sit back and I'm like, because all you care about is the transaction.
That's correct.
The big companies, all they care about is the transaction.
That's it.
And they're going to print it however they need to print your logo, and that's why they're pricing so cheap, because all they care about is volume and transactions.
Correct.
But then you try to call them because your order is delayed or your order is wrong, and there's nobody to be found.
Nope.
And because they don't have the customer service, they don't have the relationships, that they have.
Correct.
And from a business standpoint, is every single piece of swag be able to be tracked to, a cost per click or a cost per promo? No,
it's not possible.
But I go into this argument all the time, like, but you spend money on a billboard, you can't track that. Sure, you have data behind, how many people could drive by this billboard on a daily basis, but you can't track, every single car that's there, unless you got some AI camera now that's all of a sudden track, which I'm sure, like, that is eventually going to happen. And if it's not, maybe I should think of that and it'll be my next business idea.
But, you'll be on the cutting edge of that.
But you can't track piece by piece
right.
everything that you do. But creating things that keep that relationship open. I love what you said about, being able to send stuff to employees and get feedback, and you can do it subtle and discreetly so that, like, it's not asking it, and get the feedback. Get the responses from your employees. Again, if you're sending stress balls in your opening kit, your onboarding kit, people are smart. Some people. But
it's true.
They like, why am I getting a stress ball when I first show up on my first day?
Right.
Am I going to be stressed? Am I going to need this?
Yep.
It's
that perception. Yeah, I'm with you.
So many things we can go into.
So many. I love
I'm
it,
just
man.
thinking, like, things are just going in the
we
back
get
of my
the
head.
industry. It's true. I mean, there's so much into the thought, and I think that's what creates the loyalty in the industry, is because you're not trying to sell you and your services. You're trying to sell how you support the end user's end goal. And that is so important. If your end user cares about certain social causes, find a way to pull a bit of that profit and donate it on their behalf. We've done that. That's what's so fun about when we say, hey, you guys ran this incredible opportunity for us, and we know that 4 of your team members sit on the board of this nonprofit. We went ahead and made a donation of X amount in your name. And you can share that. That's up to you. And we did that. We don't need any recognition. That was all you guys. Yeah. It's similar to that model of creating the tangible impact that you can then share with your teammates. And so that too is what creates the camaraderie, the excitement about representing an organization. Because at the end of the day, you get a custom kit that is welcome to the team, and it's filled with, a blank item, one item that's branded. I literally saw one that had a lollipop in it, and it was like, what? Yeah. You sent that out? And that was not something that we did. It was something that some other employee received, and it was like, it was mind blowing to me. Or they had a pack of Lifesavers, and it says, "You're a lifesaver to our organization." It's like, I would write my resignation right there.
Absolutely. I mean,
that's where it misses.
I've seen
and
so many misses with opportunities.
And you think about then, if this is my first impression, my first day on the job, I want to open up that box, and it's going to have a warm welcome story. And that's the beautiful thing too about, most people think the custom boxes are going to be X amount. You have to do it domestically. Because we've got a great team overseas, we can bring a lot of those elements with pre-planning for cheap. But you create an unboxing experience that, whoa, look at this. There's this beautiful, my name's on the journal. My pen has a thing that's etched on it. There's a welcome letter from the CEO that talks about how excited they are. Yeah. There's some other elements that are going to help me on the job, but also make it feel like there was something that made me as the individual feel so excited. I joke, and this is true, but I've seen organizations that have people receive paperweights for 40-year anniversaries. 40-year anniversaries. You got a crystal block, kind of similar to your thing, and you're like, what is this meant to be, like a headstone down the line because I've given my life to you? What is this? There's so many misses, and that's where the excitement about where we collectively, trusted advisors, come in and say, I know this is what maybe you've done in the past, but let's think about this. And more often than not, Kevin, you'll be met with, I can't believe I never thought of that. Thank you.
And that's the thing.
Thinking about it this way.
People, it's not that they don't, like, we have these conversations, and people are like, they say exactly, we never thought of that. Because nobody's showing them that. Everybody's showing them, hey, here's my catalog of awards and recognition stuff. And while, yes, we have those stuff on the back end, actually, we're in the process right now of redoing our site, and I'm taking every product off. Yeah. Because, not because I don't want to hide stuff, but because we can create things. And like you just said, look, a nice paperweight, it might be great as a piece of something, but if somebody's been with you for 40 years and they've shown that loyalty, like they've invested their life for you. Yep. And now that's right. You need to invest, because how many times, like, we worked with someone, for I think it was 30 years. Amazing. 30 years, I think it was, where they were they would send that person for a 2-week vacation to Cancun. Wow. Because how many people are achieving that in a year? Yeah. You might have a handful maybe of your loyal, like, but it's not like, your 1-year anniversary. It's like, well, you're going through that a lot. Like, you make these steps. We've created systems to where it's like, hey, like we work with you for maybe a month or whatever it takes, 2 weeks, and we create this game plan of things, and I don't want to say we set it and forget it, but we set it up and we work with you, and things are connected, that like you put your stuff into a form, and when you hire a new person, you fill out the form and it comes into our database, and we know what your system is, and it's automated. You don't need to do anything except for work with us to create this system for you. It's not, hey, because I got a company right now. They're an $8.8 billion company. And she said to me, she goes, do you know how far behind we are in recognition?
I can't even imagine.
Because they have 4,000 employees, and they don't have this system in place. And, the posted something about this a little bit ago on LinkedIn, and it was like, somebody hands me a cheap pen and a stress ball in my onboarding kit. You're showing your employee that you view them as a cost center.
Yeah.
Versus you give them a quality, notebook and maybe a quarter zip with their name on it and your company logo on it and a handwritten note, like you said, from the CEO. I talk about it all the time. That's why I was like, yes, somebody else understands me. Or even their director or whatever the case may be.
Somebody,
You're now showing them that they're an investment. You're asking them to invest their life, their time, their 9 to 5, their work life, that they're going to spend more there than actually being able to do stuff at home.
Correct.
Invest in them because you're asking them to invest, and it's crazy. I want to end it in this. I want to hear in your words, how does merch become media when the mission is bigger than the actual product?
Oh, that's a good question. I love it.
Answer wisely now. This is your moment.
I love it. Well, and again, you're looking at one piece of the pie, right? If you're using a product, a commodity-based item, you need that to tell as much about the story of what you are all about as possible. Because you as a brand, you as an organization, likely have pillars that you stand behind. You have goals that you look to do. You have services that you provide. The product itself is one small piece of that. So it better be a really accurate representation of what you're all about. So that way your employees, when they're wearing it or they're utilizing it, can also show that they're representing the organization that they're wearing. And so you have to make sure, as somebody that's in this role, as that trusted advisor, to do as much research about that organization as possible. And anytime that we get a new opportunity with an organization, we scour the internet. We look at what do they do? How long have they been in business? What was the founder's motives? Who do they serve if they have a board? Who do they have board members serve from? Do they serve on boards? We do as much research up front before we even get on the phone with them. So we have a bit of an understanding of what they've been all about, so we can try our best to find the product, the service, the experience that's going to help them amplify that even further. If we don't do that and we just blindly look at a new opportunity as somebody to sell swag to, there is a very strong chance we will create a transactional opportunity. Yeah. And I will tell you this, and all the listeners that are out there that may be in the distributorship model, take the time to care. Yeah. That's going to be the biggest thing. Take the time to authentically care. If you view them as somebody to make you more sales, they will view you as somebody that will likely just be a one and done. They can feel it. The authenticity behind your actions are true. And that's why a lot of sales reps in our industry, from the supplier side, we don't answer their calls anymore because they view us as simply a way to line their pockets, not how can I help your business.
They're not trying to build that. They're not trying to build
They're not trying to build the rapport. I'm not going to have you come in and show me your bubble maker when you know our mission is not around that. I would much rather have those, and this is the same thing for the distributorship side, I'd much rather have a sit-down conversation with you as a representative and talk about what life looks like for our organizations going forward and how we can support one another versus, me as a distributor come and showing up with what I think are cool things without having any understanding of what your objectives are. So that is the biggest point that I can make is take the time to care and make sure that what you're representing, that small sliver of the pie, can be as big of a bite as possible. That is just an explosion of excitement from that small little piece. So that way that brand feels like they got it. Yeah. That's the biggest advice that I can give.
I love it. That's the whole purpose of this show, right? And everything that we're standing behind here, with KP Innovations and obviously this podcast is, everything you put your logo on is a direct representation of your company.
That's it.
Whether you want it to be or not, it is because you put your logo on it. And, creating that emotion and that connection is more important. I mean, this industry gets it so wrong with, hey, here's a bunch of products. and understanding, that these products don't work the same for every company.
Correct.
And because of their clientele or how their employees work, I'm not going to send the same product selection to, a small mechanic shop as I'm going to send a Ferrari. They're
Correct.
two different. They're both automotive. Well, great, but they're two completely different businesses.
That's it.
But you reinforce it, man. Like, it's not about the logo. It's about the intention, and it's about what the product represents.
Yes.
Not just, and that can be the company, that can be the mission, that can be the purpose.
Yep.
That is the whole reason of Beyond the Swag, and that merch is actually media. Logan, I really appreciate the time. Thank you for being on today's show.
Kev, I appreciate it, my man. Thank you for thinking differently in the industry and being a champion for helping organizations realize that that swag can be used for good. So what a pleasure. Thanks again.
I appreciate it.
That wraps up this episode of Beyond the Swag, Merch is Media. If this conversation made you think differently about how your brand shows up, that's the point. Because merch isn't just a product, it's a message and it's media. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who should hear it. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Kevin Patrick, and I'll see you on the next episode of Beyond the Swag.